Hey folks, welcome to the channel, and I'm back again with a brand new project. Today we are going to create a dining tip calculator. So that's how you calculate the tip when you are in a restaurant and you want to pay some tip to the restaurant waiter who served dinner or lunch probably to you. So today we are going to build something like this where you put the amount. Let's say we had a lunch for $56 and I was like really happy, so I'm going to pay 30% on the tip, and we were like two people, but I'm not going to share, so I'm going to pay all the tip on my own. So let's calculate, and it says I have to pay $16.80 as tip. What happens if the amount goes to 100 and I want to pay only like 10%, and it will be split between two people? So how much I have to pay? It shows that overall 10% of 100 is like $10, but since there are two people splitting it between them equally, so my share of tip is going to be $5. The project is very easy and simple to build, so let's go ahead and start coding. So to start the project, first we are going to create a folder in which we are going to keep all the files. So let's call this folder tip calculator. Inside this, we are going to create an HTML file which will be working as the web page where we are going to show. This will be the place where end user will be interacting and calculating the tip. So let's call it index.html. Before starting, I'm going to create a folder called image inside the tip calculator. Let's call it img, in which I'm going to place 3 images which we will be using later on to make our application a bit good and real. So let me paste 3 background images which we are going to use in our application. So first background image is this one, the second one is this, and the third one is just a paper pattern which we are going to use to present the bill. So these 2 images you can find on the GitHub repository, which I'm going to put in the video description, so you can find it from the GitHub repository. So let's go ahead to the HTML file and start coding. The first thing we want to do is create the boilerplate code because that's our good friend. Now next we are going to set the title to fine dining tip calculator. Next thing we'll do is we'll create a reference to our style sheets. So let's add a reference to our style sheet, which we'll be creating later on, and we'll be referencing styles from that. Next, let's go to the body, and here we'll create a div with the ID container. Inside this div, let's create a h1 heading, and inside this we are gonna call the same thing, or let's just do one thing. We'll take out the title, we'll put that title in the heading, and we'll keep the web page title a bit simpler, so we'll just call it tip calculator. Next thing I want to do is that I'm going to put another div just after the heading, and this div will be responsible for calculating the tip, so let's call it calculator. Inside this div, let's create a form where we will be collecting all the user input from the user to collect the tip. So inside the form element, let's go ahead and add a label, and the label is gonna say that how much was your bill. And let's add a break here. After the label, let's put a $sign and use the input type of text, and let's put a ID to it, and we are going to call it bill amount. Similar thing we are going to do for the service drop down, where user can select how much percentage he or she wants to give to the waiter who served their table. So let's go ahead and build that. So just after the billing amount and here, what we want to do is we want to add another label. Again, inside this, we want to put how was the service. Also, let's open this HTML so that we can see that how the UI is taking shape. So let's go ahead and open it with live server so that we can see, and we do see that our HTML is rendering the way we want. So let me just go ahead and put a break. Save it. And let's adjust our browser and our code editor so we can see side by side how our progress is. So we completed a form for how was the service, right? After that, let's put the break element. Start the service. Next, we are going to use a select element. Let's give it a ID and name. So the ID we're going to use for select is service quality, right? And I'm just gonna copy paste a couple of options in here to save some time. By default, we are selecting choose an option, and that has a value of 0, and it will be disabled, so even accidentally user shouldn't be able to select that one. Apart from that, we have like 30%, 20%, 15, 10 and 5% values for the service quality. And next to it, I have written the quality of the service provided. Next, again, we are going to put a break. I'm going to put break after the label. Let's save it. And as we can see, we do have now the drop down with the values. So far so good. So let's go ahead and create another label where we're going to show how many people are sharing the bill, and this will be totally optional. So if the value is provided, we are going to split the bill. If the value is not provided, we are just going to give the complete tip. The tip won't be shared among the people. So let's go ahead and put a breakpoint here, and let's take an input where user can tell us how many people are going to share the bill. Call this total people. Let's give it a nice suffix there, and then label, and again a break to make it look good. And lastly, we are going to put a button which is going to have the action of submitting the data provided by the user, which will trigger some calculation and will be showing the end result. So let's use the type of button, and the ID of that button is gonna be calculate. Yep, we're just gonna call the button calculate. That concludes our form. The next thing we want to do is that just after the calculator div, which is this one, we want to create a div where we will be showing the total tip. So let's create a div with ID total tip. Inside this, we're going to use an HTML tag called sup, and inside this I'm going to put the $sign. So the dollar will look enlarged because that's the final amount which we want to show to the end user, that how much tip he or she is going to pay. Let's create a span with ID tip, and inside this by default we are going to put $0. And next thing I want to do is create a small tag in which I'm going to put an ID of small letter each, and we're going to call it each. There you go. And in the end, just before the body tag ends, we're going to add a reference to our script file, and the source file's name would be index.js. Let's save it and see in the UI that okay, we do have one input where we can put the amount. The drop down is going to show us how much we can tip or we want to tip, how many people are going to share the bill, and once I click on the calculate, it is going to show me how much each person has to pay the tip to the waiter. So let's flip over to the JavaScript part where we will be coding the logic to calculate the tip. So let's head over to our folder and let's create a file which is already referenced as index.js. In it, let's create a function called calculate tip. Inside the function, we are going to store the input. We're going to store the input from user in some variables. So let bill amount be equals to document.get element by ID, and the ID is bill amount, and we want to read the value of that field. I don't know why Visual Studio does that for some reason. Next, we want to find out what service quality was selected by the end user. So we are going to do the same thing, document.get element by ID, and I want to get the ID of service quality, and again I want the value. And the third thing we want to have is how many number of people are sharing the bill. So let's just go ahead and document.get element by ID, and we have the element ID as total people, and we want to read the value. Let me just hide this so that we can have a better readability. Let's go ahead and do a quick validation. So we'll do a quick validation of bill amount. So if bill amount is equals to empty or none, or if the service quality selected is 0, that is a default one, we want to raise an alert to the end user saying please enter some values to calculate the tip. Next, we'll check to see if this input is empty or less than or equal to 1. So we are obviously talking about the number of people, right? So if the number of people is empty, or if number of people is less than or equal to 1, Then we just want to set the number of people value to 1. And we will do document dot get element by ID. And remember that each element we had on the UI, we're just going to grab that and we're going to set the display style of it to none. That means if the bill is not getting shared, we don't want to show the each. Else we want to show the each. So what I'll do is just I'll grab this and I'm just gonna set the display property now to block. Let's do some math. That means we are going to do some calculation. So let me define a variable called total, and this total will be equals to the bill amount multiplied by whatever service quality rating we have given and divided by number of people. So this is going to give us the total. Now we'll update the total by doing a math.round. So what round is going to do is we are going to take the total, multiply it by 100. We are going to round it to the nearest number, then again divide it by 100. So that if it is like $9.97, right, we would like to make it like closest to 10. So it will be like $10. But what if that is like 9.68? Then we want to go to the nearest one. That will be like 9.7 and not $10. So that's why we are doing that. Next, what I want to do is to update the total again, but this time I'm going to change it to 2 decimal values. Next thing we want to do is we'll display the tip. So let's display the tip. For this, let's do document.get element by ID, and we want to get the element, the name, total tip. Remember the place where we are supposed to show the tip? So the style of that, the display property of that element, we're going to set to block. And the next thing I want to do is I'm going to get the element called tip, and to the inner HTML of that I want to set the total amount, right? And once this is done, let's go ahead and hide the tip amount on load. So how we're going to do that, we're just going to call document.get element by ID, and we will select the total tip, and again the same drill. We're going to set the display to none. Same stuff for the each part. So let's grab the each element as well, set the style and the display to none. And the last thing we want to do is that calculate function which we have defined. We want to bind that to the on-click event of the button calculate. So let's go ahead and do that. So we'll get the reference to the calculate button by using the get element by ID, and I'm going to pass the ID as calculate. Once we have got this, we are going to use the on click event, and to this I'm going to assign the function to define an anonymous function inside which I'm going to call the calculate tip. Yep. So that's it. So let's go ahead and see if the logic which we have written, whether that is working or not. So I'm going to put a $100 bill. I'm going to say the service was okay, and there are only 2 people who are going to share it. Once I click on calculate, it was $15 bill, but since 2 people are splitting, it's 7.5. Let's see how it does with 9.65. And if we want to calculate, let's say the service was bad and nobody wanted to tip, it's just me. So as you can see, 9.65 was rounded to the nearest number, that is 9.7. And on 9.7, we paid 10% tip, which came out to be like 97 cents. So this works fine, this works good, but this is not catchy, and this is not catching the eyeball and the attention. So let's go ahead and put some styles so that it looks good and people want to use it. So the next thing we want to do is we want to add some styles. So let's go ahead and add a style sheet. First thing we want to put as a style is that we want to set a background to the page where, remember the background image which we copied? We want to put that in the center, and we don't want to repeat that. And the background size we are setting, and a color as well. So let's save this one and see if the changes are there or not. So it looks good, although my fine dining tip calculator text is hardly visible. So let's go ahead and start fixing them one by one. Let's go and put some styles to the container. So in the container, we are setting the width, margin, padding, the sizing. Also, this in the background, I'm setting a paper pattern so that the tip would look like a paper. So let's save this, and now you can see the background looks good. The tip, this looks like paper, parchment paper or something. And I can see my fine dining tip calculator, and the styles are good, but we are not done yet. So let's go ahead and put some more. I want to put some style for the heading tag. So let's put some padding and margin and border. And now we are going to put some styles for the form. So the form just looks good, and it takes all the space in the browser and not just like the half of it. Next thing we want to do is we want to add some styles to the button so that the button doesn't look this small. So what we are doing is like we are setting some background and the color on the button and some border. In the font size we are going to increase, and the padding and the width. So let's save that, and now this looks decent. And also what I want to do is like when we have our mouse on this one, then the background of the button should change. So let's go ahead and put some hover and active styles to the button. Okay, yeah. And also I want to do is I want to change the pointer. Sorry, I want to change the cursor to, yeah, that way. Yeah. So the next thing we want to do is we want to update the total tip, which is right now it's so small that even if I want to tip, I cannot. So let's go ahead and style those as well. But right now you can see I haven't set it people, so that's why we are not getting that each thing. So let me go ahead and put the number 4 here, and we are still not getting the each because looks like there's some problem which we need to fix. So let's go ahead and put some more styles, and now you can see the tip amount and the dollar and the amount looks much better. Now if I calculate, let's say with 2 people, yep, but we are still not getting the each thing. So let's go ahead and fix that. Okay, so it looks like I made a small typo while defining the IT. I just did like the all caps thing. not right. So now let's go ahead and put a number, $56, and I'm going to say it was a good thing, and we're 4 people going to share. So once I click, it says 2.80, but I do not see the each. So let's go ahead and debug more. Okay, so seems like that there is some issue the way I'm assigning the value for the display. So let's get rid of that semicolon there, and let's try again. And this time we should be getting that. Yep, we're getting the each now. So let's go ahead and do some testing if our error handling is working or not. So if I don't put the value on the bill, okay, it says please enter some values. If I put some values but I do not select, let's just reload this one so that, yep. It says please enter some value. So I need to select this. How was the service? So it looks like our application is working, and it's working pretty good. So I enjoyed working on this tip calculator. If you also did, let me know in the comments and share your GitHub repository with me. If you like the video, please like and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in next video with another amazing project.